Hello. I think it's normal for everyone to say we are live. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Hey, Suhas. We are here with a very special Courier Live. We are going to be doing our March product release notes. So we have a lot of exciting things that we're going to cover today, and we have some of the engineers that help make them happen. And if you stick around to the end, we have CEO and co-founder, CEO and founder Troy Good to do a little AMA and chat with us. Hey, Nate, how's it going?
Good, Adrian. Good to be back in the live stream.
Good feedback.
No, it's good to be back on the live stream.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for those who may not know who you are?
Yeah. So I'm Nate Munger, head of customer success here at Courier. I'm coming up on a year that I've been on the team, and so I send out the newsletter updates and decided that we talked internally and thought it'd be cool to turn our product updates into a live discussion where we brought in the engineers and talked about what they've been building. So
yeah, and we've got you're talking about being here for a year. Courier has changed a lot in the last year, and I'm excited about the things that we're adding that we've added in this last month. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Cool. So you can see here, these are the teammates that are going to be joining us. Let's take, but before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about how folks can join our community. If you want to share a little bit about our Discord, Adrian.
Absolutely. So we consider ourselves a community-focused company. We heart our developers, and we want to be able to speak to you, to get feedback, to help you with any problems. And you can do that by joining our Discord server. So if you just go to discord.gg/courier, you can hop right in. I think everybody in the company is in the Discord. We've got some of our customers in there. We've got some hackathon participants that occasionally stop in. So we're hoping to make it a fun time, and maybe down the line do some fun game nights, different things like that. But come join us, and we're happy to talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. Our engineers are in there answering questions often, and so is Troy and Seth, our CTO. So
and you might even see us testing out our Discord integration that you could set up using Courier as well.
Yep. Cool. All right. So let's get into the releases. So in March, we had, as you said, 3 really exciting and big releases. 2 of them are brand new. One is, I think, a significant improvement. And we're going to talk through them each. So the first one we're going to talk about is in-app notifications. That's currently in beta. That means that if you are interested in joining the beta to try out our in-app notifications, reach out to us, either support@courier.com or join the Discord and let us know that you're interested in testing it out. And that's true also for automations. But so in-app notifications, recipient preferences is something that's been around for a while with our recipients API, but we did some significant improvements to it, and we're going to talk through what's new and what's different. And then automations, which is something that's really exciting. I don't want to give away too much. We'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, so these are our 3 updates for March that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like only 3 updates, but there's just so much packed into each one of these, and so I'm excited to go through it with the developers who help make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a cheat to say that this all happened in March. These are projects that we've been working on for a while now, but they are all coming out this month. So we get to talk about them today. Cool. So in-app notifications. Let's bring in Jay.
All right, everyone. Yeah. Welcome to the stage, Jay.
Hello. How's it going?
Hey, Jay. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your background and what you've been doing at Courier.
Yeah. So I'm Jay Scott. I'm one of the engineers here. I started working with Courier this year, actually, the beginning of this year. So, just been working on the in-app stuff. That's been my main objective right now. But yeah, just really excited to be being able to provide that value to our customers.
Nice. And you had a little bit of an entrepreneurial background before you joined Courier, right?
Yeah. So I've had a couple different ideas that I took on to try to make with me and my roommate. None of them really, none of them got big, but they're just like fun little projects that like if you're doing a hobby for fun, might as well just say like, how can we make this more of a business venture? So that's kind of my mindset with it.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that's so you have outside development experience. You're coming to Courier and you're bringing kind of like that developer. Yeah, I just think that the fact that you've started things on your own kind of gives you a great perspective in terms of relating to our community members.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So let's dive into the feature.
Yeah.
So when we say in-app, there's basically there's a couple things that are important about what we've pushed in March for this. One is that we actually created our first channel provider, right? Courier Webpush is a Courier integration provider. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that is and what that entailed, and some of the interesting things that make providing push ourselves unique?
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of like a weird concept of like using your own like tool to like do something. So so we're our own provider for this one, and it's the only one that's of that kind. We don't have any more as of now. I don't know if we ever will, but yeah, it was definitely interesting. I think specifically with like push notifications, there's a lot of it just looks so simple, right? You press a button and then something shows on your screen, whether it's in an app or on a desktop. But there's a lot of little intricate little details that you have to keep in mind. A couple things like using WebSockets to send requests. That was one thing that we had to do a lot of research on and just find best practices for. It's not something every day, that you come across. Well, at least from my experience, I had never worked with them before, but it's really cool. And it's also cool to see like how other people are doing this and just kind of seeing, okay, like what do we like about how this service is doing push notifications? And then we can kind of say, okay, well, what if we did it this way? Or why is the precedent of like having to do an API like this? Like, why can't we try it like this? So like, there's a lot of just like different stuff that we like really got to play with in order to make it what we think, the easiest to consume. Of course, we're not there yet, but it's definitely on its way to being something that's really cool to use and easy for developers to integrate.
Yeah. Nice. So you're saying that so what we're presenting are these toast notifications, and so we can see that here on the slide on the left. We'll go more into that in a little bit, I'm sure. But as part of putting this together, we also implemented it inside the Courier app, right?
Yes, exactly. So so you can use Courier to basically set this up. We do offer it standalone, so you don't have to use Courier to use this, but you won't get the WebSocket type of deal.
Yeah, we're definitely going to dive into that some more. But yeah, so top line, we have a new Courier provider, which allows you to use it to do web push. There are other options which we'll get into. And the style of in-app that we deliver right now is this little toast style in-app notification. And if you use Courier now, when you send a notification from inside the application using that test send button, you get a little toast that says the notification was successfully sent. So if you've seen that, that's us using our service to do that. Okay, so before we get into the design of the toast notification itself, I wanted to talk a little bit about how there's two options for integrating Courier in-app, but they both, as I understand it, use this toast provider. Is that correct?
Yeah, the toast provider. looked at a lot of different libraries of like, what's the easiest way to provide a React component without having to like set too much up. And so, yeah, we have this provider. You put it anywhere in your app. Of course, has to be like it has to be at above where you want to use the actual toast. But yeah, it's pretty much as simple as that, and we also give some config options with that.
Mm-hmm. And so this is a step that needs to be done, whether or not you're going to use the Courier Webpush provider or the standalone integration, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So after you've got this installed, then you kind of have the tree branches into two options. One is to use the Courier provider. And so this is a screenshot of that integration. If you use Courier now, you go to the integrations tab, you see all of the different providers that we integrate with for notifications. Courier Webpush is one of those integration options. The other one is to go with using the Toast hooks. So let's dive into each one of those and talk a little bit about how they differ. But as you can see, you mentioned before, WebSockets is, I guess that's a benefit. And so I'd like to understand why someone might choose that versus why they might choose Toast. And then let's dive into this. So can you, while we're on this slide, talk a little bit about the different ways that a developer would interact with those?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so as you can see with that white screenshot, this is where you're getting your key. So we don't just like so we wanted to make sure that, you know, from what we've seen in the market right now, there's usually a way to do push notifications like a secure way and a non-secure way. So if you don't care about like people like trying to like send a notification to someone else on your behalf, then just go for the non-secure way. Like if you're just doing just like a hobby project, just get started really quick, you know, go at it. You don't need the key in there. But if you do want to do something more secure, we have the Courier provider. And so what you can do with that is you can specify to send to a certain recipient. So yeah, so so as you can see here, we have the channel and the channel and the event, and yeah. So if you're using the Courier option, then basically you are going to get the whole package of being able to use like WebSockets. I guess you. I mean, it'd be pretty tough to set up on your own. I feel like if you did want to use WebSockets without Courier, but I guess you could do that and do your own like authentication. But yeah, we really just wanted to bundle it up so you don't have to worry about, hey, like how am I gonna receive this event from my backend? How am I going to make sure that it's a authenticated request? And how am I going to manage like the channels and the events? Because for the most part, I think like 90% of the time, you're going to want to send to different like types of to different groups of people, but also you're going to have to send to like not only different groups, but also different like types of event, like different types of notifications, right? So we kind of wanted to make that easy for them with the provider.
Great. Cool. Let's look at, I don't know, Adrian, feel free to jump in if there's any questions you have, but if you think we should move on to look at hooks, let's do that.
Yeah, so this is all, I guess I know that we support React, and then we also just recently put in support for outside of React. So using this this provider and transport, is this something that you would do only with React, or same thing like with hooks? So I know that like hooks are hot right now. Everybody wants to use a hook, and that's what we're going to be going into next. But are we currently only talking about people who are using React using our provider?
That's a good question. So yeah, currently, if you're not using React, there's definitely a lot of things that you will not be able to do or like take advantage of, because we built this with React in mind first, like from the get-go. But I do think that at some point we will add like whatever we can to the non-React packages. There, for the most part, there is a way to do it. It's just going to be a lot different than React because there's no like lifecycle hooks type stuff like that built in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so if you do want to use the transport, you if I'm not mistaken, you don't have to use React for that. You can basically supply your information and the configuration, and you'll have the same benefit. You just have a harder time of like managing that state, I guess, depending on your framework you're using for front end.
Cool.
All right, so let's look at hooks. So yeah, I'm. When I hear the word hook, I think webhooks. I think that I might be on the wrong track there. Can you tell me a little bit about what hooks are, and again, why a developer might choose this route?
Yeah. Yeah. So hooks are huge. React really set up a really easy to use, I guess like life cycle when it comes to hooks. And so basically, we exposed this a way where all you really need to do is import a function into your component, and that function returns another function. And that's how the hooks work, right? Like, so it basically every time that so it just gives you a way to easily access this function to show a toast notification. So we talked about the Courier on provider way. Well, this way you don't have to use Courier at all. Like you can just literally, like, I think this is what, like maybe 10 lines of code, and you have a toast notification. And keep in mind, this is like, completely unstyled. It's just, we have our default styling, which is pretty nice, in my opinion. But if you didn't want to add more styling, you have to do that. And I don't know if you're going to go over that later, Nate, but yeah. And then, so it, just wherever you want to show it at, you can call it from that function, and it'll pop up on the screen there.
So we have a question from the chat regarding the Courier transport, the asking about the status of Angular support / available packages.
That's a good question. So I know that it is on our roadmap to support non-React, like all non-React. So if you are using Angular, then you can use our non-React package version, but it's not going to provide any specific Angular type of functionality. Like as React has hooks, you wouldn't be able to use anything that's Angular specific, but you can use our basic transport and functionality with the distributable package, and that should be. Well, yeah, I think Nate talked about it, how it's in beta, but
yeah. Yeah, we did mention this is something that we're releasing currently in beta, and so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can contact us afterwards, like Nate said, support@courier.com, or hop into our Discord and yell at one of us, and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move and talk about toast design. You touched on it in the conversation earlier. There are, again, two ways to approach the design of the toast notification. One is through the Courier designer interface. As I understand it, as it exists now, you don't have as much functionality, as much design control. I think that's something that's roadmapped for future. The other option is this the standalone toast interface that you talked about. And so that gives you a lot of granular control over the styling of the toast, both in how it behaves when it's delivered, the config, and the styling. So let's take a look at the toast interface and maybe talk us through. It's very flexible. So it's almost like there are, more possibilities than we can talk about today, but maybe talk about some of the interesting things that you think the flexibility of the interface gives developers.
Yeah, definitely. So just like how you touched on it, I think we wanted to at least be able to allow the developer to create whatever interface they wanted through code, even if it wasn't available like on the UI yet. I think that was just like, it's like, at least we have a way, so if you do want to do something super custom, you can do it. It's just you're gonna have to code it out. But yeah, so we have I think the biggest use case for designing the toast would definitely be We've had people take out the icons. There's ways to delay or stop it from going away. Some people don't like the fact that it disappears on its own. You know, on pretty much every single element as you see on that toast is customizable. So that includes colors, positioning, fonts, size of the toast itself. And we do that in a very open way that's basically passing in a style object, which is, if you're familiar with a Material UI or style components, it's using the same type of interface with styled object. I don't know the exact name for it. I think it's styled objects. But yeah, and it's on our README. But there's a lot of use cases. I think the biggest ones would definitely be the icon. You know, maybe hiding the title or the body. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest ones, and maybe some on hover stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a combination of like we're using the component and from like the developer perspective, you know, I'm building out the website with the in-app notification. I can customize what the toast is going to look like, but then the person actually creating the notification in Courier can set up the message that's going to be fed to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good, like, you know, tag team type of deal.
Nice.
The person making it doesn't have to really worry about how it looks. And once you design it one time, it'll be the same. Like, you can always keep that same theme or configuration for the toast for each notification, or change it on the fly if you need to do that.
Cool. All right. So just a little bit of an example here of, you're not, probably can't see that code, unfortunately, but just to give you a sense of, you know, that looks very different than the example, right? So you, like you said, you can set the background color, you can change the color of the font, change the color of the icon. And that sidebar, those are two buttons that you can point anywhere or to have actions.
Yeah, so basically the way that those actions work is, if you provide us with something called a click action, then you'll have two buttons there. You'll have one for dismiss and one for the details. And you could, I think we also expose changing those labels. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to check. But if you don't provide a click action, you'll just see one button there because there's nothing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how that works. Currently, I don't think there's a way to remove all the buttons. I think that was kind of like an intentional design choice. We wanted to keep like some type of interaction with the toast instead of just having like a pop-up, right? Yeah, so that's that. And then yeah, there's one thing I forgot, but yeah.
Right. And then you can see the way that slides in. That's why we call it.
There's a toast emoji. Yeah.
Also customizable.
Yes. One joke of the day, I promise. Okay, cool. And then something I want to talk about a little bit, this is really a sneak peek. So is that we're going to have an inbox component to go along with this, meaning like this would be our first embeddable component. So the in-app provider is our first channel provider, homegrown. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the first time that we're going to have something that our customers can embed in their UI. In anything you can share about the direction for that, would be really interesting. I know that I saw you share in our demo day that it might have infinite scroll. What are some of the other cool things that you're working on?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things in this inbox. I think it's, you know, I thought like Toast was exciting. This is like even like 2 steps higher than that. So yeah, there's we have infinite scroll. We have it's basically like, if you could think of the toast, it's basically like the toast is packaged into each, you know, thing. We have the details there. We have the almost like a dismiss. We have a way to like you know, read unread some messages. I know that there's a lot of different things on the roadmap and just like in consideration for that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, just like I said with the toast, it's a lot more than meets the eye. A lot of different things we had to keep into consideration, like how do we handle, you know, fetching the data and making sure it's fast, and, you know, how do we handle people that have not read notifications for months and they come back to an inbox and has like 1,000 messages? Like, what do we do? So yeah, it's definitely been a fun project to work on.
And is this going to include other channels besides in-app in the inbox?
So that is a good question. I think right now we just plan on having it as its own provider. Yeah. So Courier, yeah, on whatever you send to the Courier provider will go here. But I'm not sure about that one in particular. I'm gonna have to ask Troy on that one.
Yeah. So pretty soon we're going to be like your one-stop shop for adding in-app to your application. Like we're gonna have this nice inbox widget that you can use. We have these nice Toast components along with the Courier provider for sending the messages to your site. I mean, everything that we're building here, we're implementing inside Courier. So like, as a developer, if Nate was to come and ask you to add in-app to the application, like how long do you think that would take?
Yeah. So I mean, you mean in-app as in like the inbox?
Like the Toast notifications and the inbox to go along with it.
Yeah. So I'm sure you're saying like if I was just like a developer working on a project. Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty quick. To get the Toast set up by itself, following the README, it could probably take you like 10 minutes. And adding inbox.
So if we're talking t-shirt sizes, like this is definitely an extra small.
Yeah, I mean t-shirt size. If you literally just want to set up a notification with Toast, definitely extra small. If you want to add the inbox, they literally like work cohesively. So, it doesn't take. It only takes one more line of code to add in the inbox. So you're basically getting them both for free, whichever one you do choose to use.
We do love just those single lines of code.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jay.
Yeah,
that was really, I enjoyed that. I learned a lot. And great. We're going to move on to the next stage. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. See ya.
And you can always, again, join the Courier Discord and talk to Jay inside our Discord. He's there.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we've got another developer from our team joining us. I'll give him a few seconds here. But up next, we're going to talk about preferences and the improvements that we've worked on in the month of March to this existing API. I'm really excited to introduce Suhas. Is Suhas in the...
He's ready. Welcome to the stage, Suhas.
Oh, hey. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Hey. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah. Like Nate mentioned, my name is Suhas Deshpande. I've been working with Courier from last 3 months. Joined in January earlier this year. I come from Mapbox, which is a mapping software company. It's also a small, fairly big startup at this point.
Cool. Awesome. And you've been working on preferences. So I'd like to actually, it's interesting, I think, because you took on something here, you and the team took on something here, which is, there was already structure in place, very different than the experience that Jay in Apti had. What were some of the things that, like, could you talk a little bit about in the Courier world, how recipient profiles and recipient preferences interact?
Yeah. Before I talk about Courier specific, I would like to take a step back and say this is really a recipient focused workflow. I have a lot of opinions when my DoorDash delivery tells me that my food is ready, and I have strong opinions about how I should be notified about. And those are all the categories of things that fall under preferences. And as a Courier, as a notification provider, we ought to offer those kind of functionalities to our customers, so that they can customize the amount of information that they receive from our customers. And that's what the preferences team or APIs offer.
Yeah, it's all about getting the right message to the right customer and the right way.
Yeah. Exactly. That's very important because we have so many ways that we can get attention of our audience that if we screw that up, it's going to create a bad user experience, which we don't want.
Right.
Cool. All right. So I think that's a good segue into some of the things that we now can offer, as you said, our customers can offer this functionality to their end users. So in our conversations about preferences, you've talked about how there are a few new things in terms of like, you can see this is not an actual UI. This is sort of more of like a conceptual idea here, but people can set their notification preferences now on a per notification basis, meaning like, I want this one, I want this one, I don't want this one. And on the one I want, send it to me by email. And this one, send it to me by Slack or SMS.
Yes.
Our customers can group notifications into categories. So for example, product updates or marketing or, transactional. And then their users can say, I don't want to receive marketing, or if I do, send it to email. For my product updates, I want those to come through MS Teams. And then also subscription, which I think is connected to our lists API, right? You can say, monthly newsletter, just let me just subscribe to that, comes through email. So that's those are some of the functionality. And then also, I think universally, channel preferences can be set. So you could also give them the option to say, what's your primary channel that you want notifications on? Where would you like it secondarily? And those all work together, right? So maybe kind of expand on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, it's essentially an inversion of control. So giving the power back to the people who are on the receiving end of the information so that they can customize it based on their needs, because they know their needs better than anyone else. And this sort of giving the power programmatically is what separates Courier from other programmatic APIs. That all this thing that you are looking at in the UI is completely customizable, and it's all API driven. So anything that you see here is up for grabs, and you can customize it and programmatically toggle on and off and allow your customer to give that power. But on a surface level, it looks fairly simple, but there is some complications that goes along with this, because amount of information that you have to toggle on and off and then keep track of how to send it and not to send it can get complicated.
Yeah. And does Courier help with that?
Yeah, Courier abstracts out all those complications so that you don't have to build it. You just have to focus on your own business and let the heavy lifting of this preferences, notification, how to send it on Courier. So like UPS, I drop my box off and I don't have to worry about it because they give me a tracking ID and I can keep refreshing my page if I want to.
Yeah, this is really great, because originally with Courier, what we did is we put this power in the hands of the people creating the notification. So if you wanted to do like always send the email and send to the best of a channel, the person creating that notification was in charge of that. So they could set up the priority queue of send to the push. If they don't have push, send to SMS. If they don't have SMS, send to email. And that's great. But now, like you said, we're kind of giving the power back to the person, and like maybe even if they do have push notifications, they would rather get this as an SMS. So like in my traditional cases, flying like Delta, if there's a gate change, then I'm going to get notifications to like all my channels, because they don't segregate it like that. But if it's a gate change, it's more likely that I'm going to receive that as an SMS. So I want to put my preferences, gate changes, please send that as text.
Yeah.
And that's what we're allowing people to do just so easily. And this concept design just I think makes everything like look so much clearer of like what the possibilities are.
Yeah. So Jay, this is not the actual design. This is more of a concept, but somebody could use our API to build their own interface and build this into their app and achieve what we have here, right, Suhas?
Yeah, I have seen customers building those this kind of user experiences using our APIs, and those are like extremely good use cases.
Nice. And the other thing, Adrian, I think you make a good point, and I'm talking more a little bit from the customer experience, customer engagement point of view here, is that I think there's some fear in that when you give users the ability to turn things off or to set preferences, that you might end up with less engagement. But I think The philosophy here is that you're actually going to engage people more. Your delivery rate will be higher, especially your open rate is going to be better because they're receiving the notifications that they want, how they want to engage with your application in the channel that they want. And so you're actually going to be more effective when you give people this kind of control.
Yeah, and if let's imagine the situation where I accidentally opt out of my W2 notification. That is very important information that I should be receiving, right?
Mhm.
But I happen to fat finger it and unsubscribe it. As a provider or as a person who is sending this information, they can always use default settings where, okay, this is a extremely high urgency notification and I should be sending this regardless, and they can do that.
Yeah, there are some types of notifications that you have to send because of compliance reasons. So that's a good option.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's. I just want to look a little bit at some code. Again, this might be a little bit hard to read, but I think the point here is how simple this code is. I'm not a developer. I can read this code. Like, I think that's really interesting. And kind of goes to the way that we think about and respect developers by making really clean code. So I don't know, Suhas, if you have any comments or thoughts about as we were building this, what you were considering.
We want to build interfaces that we ourselves would use. So that is a good indication or a forcing function for us to design API interfaces which makes simple to use, reasonable to comprehend, reason about, and all that. So those are the thought processes that we take during designing any new API or modifying an existing API.
Nice.
But that's about it. I think.
Yeah.
I like that you said it's clean, so that I can take this as a compliment and pass it on to the team.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I think is cool that we added was the ability to snooze a notification. So, if you need to stop getting a notification for so long, you can actually implement a snooze. So like if you don't want notifications for 2 hours, like turn that off. And I think that's a good option to give because that keeps people from turning them off indefinitely. So that was really cool to see as an addition for this.
Yeah, because I imagine, I probably wouldn't want to turn off my notifications around gate changes all the time, or like updates to my flight changes. Maybe I don't want to get them 3 months out, but I'm more interested in getting them a month out, and so I could snooze them for 2 months. So, good point. So you talked about customer impact here. I'm going to pull up a couple quotes from Helena Merck. She's the CEO of Glimpse, and I'll just read these out because I think her quotes really illustrate some of the things that you were talking about, Suhas. So first of all, Helena says, for users, customization and preferences are no longer a nice to have, they are an expectation. And by allowing end users to specify delivery priorities, frequencies, and channels, we reduce perceived spamming by respecting our users' priorities. And if users don't feel they're being spammed, then they're not going to shut you off completely. They're not going to, turn off the notifications in your in your app settings and things like that.
And that's really tough. I've been working in email since like 2011, and people will just call anything spam. They're like, "Oh, I'm being spammed by this," and I was like, "Well, did you sign up for for this list?" And they're like, "Well, yeah," and I was like, "Well, then it's not technically spam." And so there's this perception that any unwanted email is spam, and so giving them the power to like set their preferences, to set what list they're part of and everything, it just helps with that because everything is spam unless it's something I want.
Right. Good distinction. Okay. And then I have another quote from Elena, which is more from like the developer perspective, because she is technical CEO. So realizing this, we blocked out significant engineering resources to build a custom notification preferences. This is something we hear quite a bit from people coming to Courier. I was about to build this, or we already started. It's, we had set aside all this time. We found Courier. We kind of like hit the brakes to dive into what Courier offers. And as Helena says, they deleted a ton of code when they decided to go with Courier. And so as they were implementing Courier's APIs for preferences, they were deleting the custom code that they had already built. Yeah, and then touches again on the respect. Preferences makes it easy to respect our glimpsers and saves our startup critical dev time so we can focus on product and growth. So I should mention Glimpse is a social video platform for community building. And it's a little bit like kind of a random pairing. And so anyone who's part of the Glimpse community in that group, they get paired with somebody to video chat for a while, and then then it switches to a new member of the community. And so there are things like notifications around like an event is starting or somebody mentioned you in this chat. And so there is quite a bit of potential notification volume. And that's why Glimpse wants to give their end users control over that through preferences. Suhas, you worked quite closely with Helena. Is there any other of specific use cases that you found interesting that they implemented?
They are the first customer that I mean, I guess that my interaction with Helena has been always very fruitful and productive. We get a lot of good feedback on future ideas that we could implement and current ideas that we can improvise. So a good feedback and a very fast life cycle of like we build something, they give us quick feedback, we iterate on it. So it's been a very fun adventure.
Yeah. Another reason to join our Discord, if you want to help shape Courier, if you want to be part of that, we do work very closely with our beta testers, and we take feedback seriously. And I've seen it turn around really quickly, and it makes a better product. So.
Yeah, we want to build things that people want to use. And so being able to talk with the users like in real time as we're developing these out, working in the beta, working with our community, it just makes a better product and experience for everyone. So, and we'd love to have you as part of that. So again, we're down there.
All right. So one last thing. This is a sneak peek. We don't even have a design for this. So previously that was just the concept design. We don't have our own internal design yet for this, but we do, as I understand it, have in our plans another component for embedding a preferences setting. So our customers don't have to build that UI. Do you have any other insight into that, Suhas?
No, this is a great insight to start with.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a very greenfield, but it is part of our plan. So stay tuned for that. Anyways,
like how awesome to just drop all of those settings and things into your app without having to write any more than a couple lines of code. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
People who love Legos will love Courier. That's what I'm going to say.
I like that. People who love Legos will love Courier. That's right.
It's components.
We provide notification Lego boxes.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Suhas. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye. Cool. All right. Moving along. Last release that we're going to talk about today, automations. That I will tell you that this encompasses quite a bit. It's a small word for a big function that we've created here. So I think we're going to be joined by Chris. So let's.
I'm ready for him. Welcome to the stage, Chris.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. Tell us
me what's going on.
Yeah, introduce yourself for us, please.
Yeah, my name's Chris. I joined Courier back in January, so along with Suhas and Jay, so about 3-4 months now. And I started working on the automations team, building out automations, and it's been a really fun project. The team's been great. A lot of fun progress has been made.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, so I just want to introduce automations with like a little bit of a conceptual diagram here. This is not UI or anything, but the idea is that, customers have been coming to us for a long time saying, I know I can create individual notifications. I can trigger each of those notifications with a single event. If I want to create related notifications, I have to build all of this logic on my side. I have to, be able to check to see if things happened with those other notifications before I decide to send the next one. I would love it if Courier handled that on their end, that logic. And so, I mean, I think that's like the best way to summarize what automations, the impetus behind why we've developed this is that it's not only for marketing marketing email campaigns that people want this kind of logic. They also want it for transactional notifications so that we make sure that important information is delivered.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you first want to add notifications to like your application, you may think, oh, I just want to send my users a message and be done with it. But a better way to, drive engagement or, not annoy your users essentially is to sort of have this transactional logic or this fine-grained control of when and how you send your users their notifications. And automations is sort of like the logic, as you said, to sort of facilitate that. So instead of, you building this out yourself, it's much better to just use the existing API to facilitate that for you.
Yeah. So there are, at this stage, I think we can break down a little bit about what the actual functionality is, right? There are 4 steps that are possible to build into your automation: send, delay, cancel, and send list. And I think the really key thing, or the thing that feels very Courier to me, is that this all can be invoked with, again, a single API call. So once you create that automation template, which we'll talk a little bit more about what that is in a second, you can build these steps into the automation, but it takes one one API call to invoke it, and then if you want to cancel it, another single API call will stop the automation. When usually you have a goal, you want something to be achieved through this automation series, and if that happens, you want to stop it so you don't send unnecessary messages, and we allow that too.
Yeah, I like to think of automations as sort of like this series of notification actions that you can take for your users. So an example would be like maybe you want to wait a few days before sending your user another notification. So in that type of automation, or whatever you want to call it, you would define a send step followed by a delay step followed by another send step. So sort of in this natural way, you can use the API to define like a series of automation steps that will facilitate your logic for you.
Yeah, awesome. So moving through the slides here, there are basically 2, there's an automations API with 2 actions, invoke and template invoke. We'll talk about the difference there in a minute. And then the template builder UI. So the actual automation itself is built inside the Courier UI at this stage. You send it or invoke it through template invoke, but there is another option called the ad hoc automation, which is the slash invoke. So I think let's talk about ad hoc.
Sure.
Maybe a use case for that.
Yeah. So yeah, like you mentioned, Nate, like there's 2 real main ways to execute or invoke an automation. The first we'll talk about is like an ad hoc automation. This is where you just provide the logic or the series of steps right in the post request body. So in the API call itself, just pass us the list of steps that you want to be executed, and we'll just handle that in an ad hoc fashion for you. So there's no need to set up anything else. You can literally just make an API call and start sending messages to your users. A good use case for this would be if you have some type of list of users that might be transient or kind of changing quite a bit, you can just send a list or pass us an automation run that will send them, like, for example, an email for each one of these people in the list. So this is a way to sort of just get quickly up and running with automations and just make an API call and start sending notifications.
And those notification templates still are designed in Courier, right? You're not building the content of the notification through this. You're calling an existing Courier notification into that ad hoc automation.
Yeah, exactly. Like automations is kind of like the glue that pulls all these other amazing Courier features together. So if you already have a bunch of notification templates that you've designed, those are going to hook up like automatically with Automation's API.
Yeah, so for this use case, we used to have to do it to where we would do a single send multiple times. So we were making, n number of API calls to Courier to send to n number of recipients.
Right.
And then came along, we have lists, but then you have to maintain that list, and that you might not need that list after the send happens. So you would find yourself having to add people to a list, send to it, and then you would just abandon the list.
Right.
But what this allows you to do is to make one API call to send all of those. So no longer do you have to write like a for loop and loop through and create all of those different calls. You can just do it in one, which is very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that while that is really powerful, that might get annoying. Like, what if this list isn't transient? What if this is a more fixed list that you have, and you don't want to have to like reconstruct that API call every time, right? This is where like an automation template would come in. So you can predefine a set of steps that you want to execute, and you would save that as an automation template. And then whenever you decide to execute or invoke that template, you would use this API.
Great. So I mean, it's again super simple. You call it one time. Either you provide all the steps in the ad hoc version, or if it's like you said, a reusable kind of automation, you build it out as a template, but still can call that with one. And so I'd like to take a little bit. So this does have a UI. I think some of this might be conceptual here, but this part is not. We actually have a template builder that is, again, in beta. So if you're interested in trying this feature out, reach out to us either through the Discord, as you see scrolling along the bottom there, or support@courier.com, and we can talk through your use case and get you into the beta. That would be awesome. So again, let's go back to this scenario. This is we've got a template we're going to look at in a second here, but the scenario here is that rather than just send a team invite notification saying you've been invited to this team, we want to have a way to follow up on that initial invite to try to increase the number of users accepting the invites to their teams. So the kind of triggering event here is a teammate is invited to join a tenant.
Right.
We trigger we do that through triggering the template through invoke, right? It sends the welcome email. It uses a delay step of 24 hours. We want to send a welcome follow-up if they didn't accept that initial invite.
Exactly.
Right. We wait another 24 hours, and then we sort of have designed a scenario where if they did accept the invite, we tell the inviter that the invitee has joined their team. If they don't accept it, then we tell the inviter they were unresponsive to that invite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A cool thing that we recently shipped for automations is this idea of like conditionals. So like Nate mentioned, like we only want to send this message if some other condition was met or wasn't met, right? And so in this way, you could kind of facilitate your logic a lot easier on when you want to send things just right through the API or the template in this case.
Yes, awesome. So this one is, it's again, just the idea that you can build those steps in the Courier UI is what I'm trying to illustrate here.
Right.
And then it gets saved, right? So you have in the Courier designer a list of existing automations, and those can, you can go in and update those, change those, add different notifications. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So for this example, like we've defined like this welcome campaign here. So anytime a new member joins your team, there's nothing that you have to change or edit. You can just simply call this API or invoke this template and pass the name of the new person, and that welcome campaign is going to be triggered automatically for you. And
yeah, and this is a JSON object that we're building for this template. But we're using something called JSONit, which allows us to do some programmatic things and pull in data. So you can see for recipient, we're pulling in recipient from the data, and we're pulling in email from the profile. But there's a lot of powerful things that you can do with JSONit, like You can do loops and other conditionals inside there to output the right JSON that you need.
Yeah, for sure. JSON has been a super powerful tool. It's really, once you kind of get the hang of it, it's really cool to use.
The other thing I want to point out before we move along is that you can cancel these too, right? So just to highlight that, if, for example, if your user revokes the invitation at any point, you could stop this automation series because it's not necessary anymore.
Exactly.
We got a question. Do I have to remember what I should be typing in JSON in, or will there be a full editorial experience?
That's a great question. I think that we would all like to eventually support like a full editor experience where you can get tooltips and sort of code completion and things like that. That's not currently supported since this is still in beta, but that's an awesome suggestion. And I think that we all really want something like that for sure.
Yeah. And Seth brings up that you can also cancel via the UI.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can invoke and cancel right from the UI.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Which I think, again, I missed my slide here, but we do have, it is a simple, again, you could trigger that for any reason through some kind of event, single, very simple code that you send to the automations API.
We have a question from the chat. Plans for version control for these templates or other code-based config that's only within the UI on app.courier. If I want to define this or other Courier config with code in my apps repo, is that possible? So do we have the draft template for this?
I think it's kind of think that what this is alluding to. Like, we just are rolling it. If it hasn't rolled out, it's imminently going to be rolled out very soon. Where all of these will support versions and drafts, a published version versus multiple drafts of the same thing. So you'll be able to keep track of different iterations of your automation templates.
Yeah, and then Seth brings up that you can use ad hoc templates that you store in your repository. So if you want to version control it that way with an ad hoc template instead of a Courier template, I guess template.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I just want to plug again that if anyone is interested in beta testing automations, that they should reach out to us through support@courier.com or the Discord channel where you are, and they'll be able to ask you questions as they're getting this set up.
Yeah, absolutely. The feedback is great, and we're able to move pretty quickly. So the more feedback, the better.
Awesome. Great. Well, I appreciate your time, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Nice. All right. I'm glad I hope we're not bumping our CEO here. It's coming up on the hour, but we don't really have a limit here on the live stream. So I want to talk a little bit about the Courier roadmap and other interesting things. And also, anyone in the chat can jump in with questions for Troy, but let's bring in Troy.
All right. Welcome to the stage, Troy.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Oh, man. You can see with the side-by-side, it's like, okay, Troy pre-COVID, Troy post, well, I guess not post, right?
Yeah, not yet.
COVID in situ.
Awesome.
Hey, what a great stream so far. I caught the last 30 minutes of it or so. I unfortunately missed the beginning, but I'm going to go back and watch it. But it's one of those things where it's so much fun because I'm watching, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And it's like, wait, I already knew about this.
Yeah.
And then you see it in stream format, and you're like,
yeah.
Well, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you giving us some time to talk through this stuff. I don't know, Adrian, if you wanna jump in here, I'd love to hear what as a developer, what kinds of questions you have for Troy.
Oh yeah, so I've been here over a year. Courier has changed a lot. So a lot of the things that Troy was talking about in the beginning is actually happening this month. But if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about how we got to where we are, and then if you could kind of give us a glimpse of what we should look forward to in the future with Courier and what our clients can look forward to using, be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adrian, that's a really good point, right? Because I think a lot of what we talked about as a team in the very earliest days of Courier, and like any small startup, we couldn't immediately achieve everything that we wanted to. We couldn't build everything right away. But a lot of those things that we first talked about are now starting to land, right? And we have customers actually using a lot of what we stream today in beta. And those are things we've been talking about since nearly the inception of the company. So that's a big milestone for us. And I think that the milestone, what it represents is a bit of a turning point for us as a product company. And I was talking to some of the other engineers on the team recently about this, where the way I kind of think about it is we kind of spent the last 2 years building primarily the things that you as a developer were going to have to build anyway, right? Kind of the table stakes for notifications. And we like to think we've built them better than what if you're putting a couple of engineers on the project for a few months, what you're probably going to build just by virtue of us having more people on it for longer. And we're also like deeply focused in this space, so there are advantages there, but at the end of the day, it's still the stuff you were going to do anyway. So hopefully we can save you that time. But where we're starting to shift to now is going a step beyond that, right? Looking at that as the platform for Courier and being able to build beyond what you would ever really justify building internally. And they might be things that were in your roadmap as a developer, or something that you wanted as a PM. But when you looked at the opportunity cost of building that versus building some of the things that are your core value prop for your business, they would just like become those things that never quite make it into the sprint, right? And so we're building out a lot of that stuff, and that's really, I think, where we're starting to see things evolve to a Courier, and I think that's really exciting, right? So that maybe some examples of that. Actually, I think the classic example, because this has been something that's driven me nuts as an engineer for years, is the digest use case.
Oh,
right. And so I know you're humming because we hear about this a lot, right?
yeah.
So like the digest use case is my product needs to send a bunch of notifications potentially to the user pretty quickly, right? It might be, I think LinkedIn does a pretty good job of this, right? If I get a bunch of invites in LinkedIn, I don't necessarily get an email notification for every single invite. They'll start to recognize that and they'll batch them together and say, hey, Troy, 7 people asked you to connect with them today, right? Instead of 7 different emails that flood my inbox. Doing that, there's a few different ways you can do it. You could set up a cron job and query it at the end of the day and just say, here's how many. And there's other ways where you can kind of set up an aggregator and you can say, okay, well, let's ingest it and set up rules to essentially release this and debounce these messages. But what I've often seen, especially at companies that don't have the resources of a company like LinkedIn, is they just don't digest it. And so you actually do just end up with a bunch of emails all in your inbox, kind of back to back. And I've multiple times had teams where we had that as a backlog item. Hey, let's start digesting these together. And we just never quite got it into scope.
So it sounds like down the line, this could be something that Courier solves for their customers possibly soon.
Possibly very soon. So I think some of the folks that you saw on the stream today have already been starting to think about how we're going to solve this. And we'll have a few different kind of cuts of this. I think there's a few different use cases here, actually. But the team, I think, will see within, the not too distant future, you'll start to see some of the earliest releases of this. And I think this is going to be one of the things that our customers are super excited for.
Yeah. So you've been like a VP of engineering at multiple companies. You've had to build, something that is basically Courier at every step, which is, if you read our blog post, and I should link it out here, why we built Courier, you can learn all about that. But what do you think those early years Troy would think if Courier came across his desk today?
Good question. Good question. I think it depends on, it kind of depends on the stage of the company, right? Like I've been at companies where we were just starting out. I've been at companies where we took the company public, right? So the needs of, the team when there's, you alone is different than when there's a team of, 4 or 5 engineers and maybe your first product manager versus when you've got a team of hundreds. And obviously we're growing and maturing, and I think that we provide value at each of those stages, but like the value kind of changes, which is what's been kind of tricky for Courier, right? So like an example here, one of the really common pain points that when I've been at later stage companies I've had is the people that ultimately want to manage the templates, want to control the content and the branding of the messages that we were sending from our products, typically weren't engineers. Maybe at the earliest of days, engineering needs to add a few different messages and cared about the content because it was kind of to enable key product use cases. But as you expand, what you see is product management, design, and other stakeholders wanting to influence those templates more. And so for those later stage companies, being able to hand that template management off to other parts of the business where the developers don't have to be the ones managing it, that's a huge value add, both for the engineer who no longer has to do the work that frankly they weren't thrilled to do, and for the other parts of the business who now have direct access to do it without filing a Jira ticket. On the other hand, at earlier stages, when you're just a developer just building out your very first version of your notifications platform, things like list management and subscription management, right? Being able to say, hey, I need to basically do a fan out here where I need to notify people who have expressed interest in this particular, room or this particular document, right? And I want to let people click a subscribe button. And now whenever that document gets updated, I want to send a notification just to those people. Well, now I've got to build out a table to track that. I've maybe got to build up a separate preference mechanism, not at the user level, but at the user subscription level. I've got to do a fan out that can intelligently look at those preferences, that can potentially page through thousands or more recipients per document. That stuff is like the stuff you often have to build really early on and eats up a ton of your time that would really be better put into the other parts of the business. So I'm biased, obviously, but I like to think that the me at different stages of the businesses that I've been at before would have been like, look, this is not what I want my engineering team to be investing our time into. Courier's 100% focused on this. Let's just kind of grab that off the shelf and plug it in.
Yeah. So for our customers, I guess as a goal of Courier going forward, like, I guess what is the optimum amount of developers that should be working on the Courier integration be? Do you think that it's going to be like a ramp up and then you have like a person over time, or do you think one developer, that's all you need, and then of course a backup?
Yeah. So I think there's obviously work we've got to continue to do here to make onboarding ever easier. I know both of you spend a lot of time on that, and we've got other people on the team that spend a lot of time thinking about that. But like at the end of the day, I'd love to see us get to the point where, sure, you have to have an engineer plug it in, right? And there's integration work that happens up front. Sometimes that's more work if you have to migrate from an existing system than if you're just doing this, greenfield. But we would love to see this be something where, and I think probably for greenfield it is today something you can plug in over the, matter of an hour or two, right? And then maybe you come back and spend another couple hours here or there to add a new use case, right? Add a new notification, add a new channel, right? But you don't have to have somebody on it full time. For later stage companies, I think that it's probably more realistic that it's going to take at least a few days, maybe sometimes a week or more, to migrate a lot of the existing infrastructure over. And again, we've got things that we're doing to help expedite that and make that easier. But I think in either case, my goal is that after that, you don't have any engineers that are full-time focused on notifications, which is not the way late stage software businesses look today.
That's great. So we talk a lot throughout this stream about how we're very community focused. We like working with our community members. Can you think of something that's now part of Courier that you didn't think of that came about because of conversations with the customer?
Oh gosh, I mean, most of it. Right? Like, I mean, obviously there was the initial idea was still to build a notification platform. But nearly everything after that came about from talking to Customers definitely, but I would expand community here beyond our customer base, right? And we love our customers, of course, but our community represents not just people who are using Courier today, but people who maybe would have used Courier if Courier had existed 5 years ago, right? And I spend a lot of time talking to the notification infrastructure teams at larger companies, and they help us understand not just where we need to be today, which I think probably our active customers do a more effective job at conveying to us, but those later stage companies really help us understand where we need to get to, right? And so if you're a company with, let's say, 30 engineers, right, and you're starting to think about putting your first couple of engineers to heavily focus on notification infrastructure, well, not only do we think we have a great solution for you today, but we're heading in the direction that when you're 300 engineers, right, when you would otherwise have 15 plus engineers working on notification infrastructure, we're building out the systems that will make sure you never have to make that enormous investment. So, these are features like, obviously one of the things that Courier is well known for is doing channel-based routing. Figuring out if I'm sending a message to Nate, is this going over email? Is this going over mobile push? Is this going over SMS or Slack? But one of the things we learned from some of those larger companies is there's a big need for provider-based routing, right? Once you get to scale, all of a sudden you probably want to have backup providers, right? You don't want to just sole source your email vendor or your SMS vendor, right? And that's for reliability, that's for pricing, right? That's for, I was just talking to a customer recently who unfortunately had a bit of a conflict with one of their SMS providers, and they shut them down. They've had to switch, right? And that kind of thing happens sometimes. And being able to act as kind of that broker means that you can keep pricing control in your hands, you can keep reliability high, and you can always have kind of an easy out if things get pretty rough.
Nice.
And with the ease of our integrations, I've helped customers make those switches as well. So it's not difficult in a scenario where you need to change providers to it's literally a change of an integration inside Courier. We're not going back to the code to rip everything out and start over.
That's right. And so, it's not uncommon for us to see email channels, switch providers. Maybe they're unhappy with the deliverability rate of their current provider, and so they would use Courier to swap to a different one. And what I think we'll see more and more of in certain channels, SMS in particular, right, is not just switching wholesale from provider A to provider B, but actually routing intelligently to the right provider for a given geography, right? And saying, who's going to give me the best price? Who's going to give me the best deliverability for Europe, for Africa, for India? And not just picking this is my sole provider.
Got it. Awesome. I'd be interested to know if you have any insights into where some of the features we talked about today. What's the next step for one of them more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we started the stream with some of our in-app notifications, right, where we can see live toast popping up in real time. We can see things like your read and unread inbox directly within your UI. I'm not sure if we showed that you can manage, as a user, you can manage your own preferences directly from within there. That's something that we're working towards. One that I'm really, really excited about, though, is what we call presence, right? Presence, not present, although those both are exciting. And presence is more about helping Courier be aware of whether your user is currently online within your app experience, whether that be on web or on mobile or not, and using that data for intelligently routing the message to the right channel for them at that point in time, right? And when we think about, for example, if you've used Slack, how does Slack let you know that you were mentioned, right? Well, they have 3 channels. They have in-app, mobile push, and email. How do they decide which of those 3? Because they don't send it to all 3 at the same time. They say, are you already online talking to somebody else? And if so, we'll deliver that to you via in-app. And if not, then we'll start to look at mobile push and email. So that new in-app component is giving us the ability to start to track that for you and let you as a developer use that as a routing mechanism within Courier and say, look, for this message, if they're already online, that's going to be the best way to deliver this notification to them. So let's use that. But if they've walked away from their desk, if they're idle, if they're not logged in, then we start to look at things like email. So that's, I think, something that was in our very earliest slide decks. But again, falls into that bucket of haven't had the chance to build it, and that also I think we'll see coming soon.
Nice. Is that a crossover with automations that you were describing there? Like you build into one of the steps, checking?
Well, I think that we'll probably expose some of that via automations, but no, this is something that really fits more within the bones of our routing system, which automations can help you influence. But even if you're just sending a single message as opposed to orchestrating a bunch together, Courier really should be the smart way to figure out how to deliver that message without you having to write that extra orchestration layer.
Best of channel.
Exactly.
I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any other questions, and probably a good place to wrap up. Any final thoughts? Any final words before we end the stream, Troy?
No, well, thanks guys for putting this together, and thanks for everybody who's having a chance to view this either live or via recording afterwards. We're making a lot of progress every month now. As probably I think folks may have gathered hearing from some of the folks that joined the stream and mentioned when they joined, we've seen a lot of team growth over the last few months, and I think that's now bearing fruit in terms of the speed at which we're able to deliver new capabilities to our customers. So that's incredibly exciting. So thank you to all of the team that worked really hard to get this in front of our customers and in front of folks who maybe could benefit from being customers in the future. But also thanks to all of our customers, especially the beta customers who've worked really closely with our teams internally to make sure that we're building the right thing.
Yes, and all the customers who have said such great things about us and allowed us to relay that out.
Yes,
absolutely. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And if there were any questions you wanted to ask Troy, but you didn't want to ask them live, you can, of course, join our Discord and find him in there. Or you can send us an email at support@courier.com, or even on our website, we've got the little intercom. So we're listening on many channels. But I think that's it for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the questions that we got. We look forward to talking to you. And until next time, see y'all later.